They might have tried to write Shedeur Sanders off too early, and that could end up being one of the most embarrassing misreads Cleveland makes. Because the way people talk about him right now does not sound like patience. It sounds like a verdict. It sounds like some people made up their minds before the full story ever had a chance to play out. And once that happens in this league, every bad throw gets replayed, every stat gets weaponized, and every little flaw starts getting treated like proof that a player was never the guy in the first place. But the deeper you look at what has actually been happening, the harder it is to ignore one simple question. What if they are judging him way too early? That is what makes this whole situation feel off. The conversation around Shedeur keeps circling the same tired points. Not perfect, not polished enough, not consistent enough, not ready yet. And sure, nobody is saying the guy has been flawless, no young quarterback is. But the way the criticism gets delivered, you would think he has shown nothing worth building on, and that is where the story starts falling apart. Because that is just not true. He has shown poise. He has shown feel. He has shown the kind of flashes that make you stop mid-drive and say, hold on, that looked different. The problem is those moments keep getting buried under a louder, easier storyline. And that storyline is a lot more convenient than admitting the situation around him has been messy from the start. But that was just the beginning. Because once you add context, the entire conversation changes. Development is never just about the quarterback. It is about reps. It is about rhythm. It is about protection. It is about whether the player is being put in position to settle down and actually play the game instead of just surviving it. And that is where Shedeur's situation starts looking a lot different from the way it gets talked about on the surface. When a young quarterback is not getting the cleanest setup, not getting ideal continuity, and not always operating behind stability, every mistake gets louder. Every hesitation gets punished. Every possession starts feeling like a test instead of an opportunity. That is not how you usually build confidence. That is how you force a player to grow under pressure. And sometimes that pressure creates ugly moments before it creates real progress. And then it got worse. Because while the media conversation keeps living in the box score, the film conversation is a different story. That is where things get uncomfortable for the doubters. When people who actually know quarterback play sit down and watch the tape, the tone changes immediately. Suddenly, it is not just about completion percentage or one rough stretch. Now the focus is on how he sees the field, how he moves inside the pocket, how he works through progressions, how fast the ball comes out when the play is there, and whether he is making the right decision when the structure holds up. Those are not small details. Those are the details. That is how real quarterbacks get evaluated. And when that becomes the lens, Shedeur starts looking a lot less like a problem and a lot more like a young passer who has real tools that are still being formed. That is a completely different story than the one most people have been selling, and that is where this starts getting interesting. Because the flashes are not random. They are specific. You can see him climbing the pocket better. You can see him reacting quicker. You can see him settling his feet and letting the ball go with more conviction. You can see the moments where he recognizes what the defense is trying to do, communicates what he wants, and then attacks it without panicking. That matters. That is the kind of stuff coaches notice before the public ever catches up. And when the protection gives him even a little room to breathe, the whole picture changes. The throw looks cleaner. The timing looks sharper. The decision looks easier. Suddenly, the same quarterback people were trying to reduce to a talking point starts looking like someone who can actually command an offense. And that is the part that should make Cleveland pay attention, because these are not miracle flashes. These are foundational traits. They are the kind of things you can build on fast when the environment stops fighting the player. But that was not even the biggest part of it. The bigger issue is what this means for Cleveland itself, because now this stops being just a prospect story or a young quarterback debate. Now it becomes an organizational question. What exactly are the Browns looking for? If the goal is to find a quarterback they can actually develop, then why act like a young player has already hit his ceiling before giving him the conditions most young quarterbacks need? That is where the logic starts breaking apart. If the line improves, if the reps become